sort of a response to YankeeMarshal, who I don't watch a lot of his videos. He kind of irritates me, but there are times I find myself agreeing with him, and there are times I find myself disagreeing with him, and there's times that I understand where he's coming from and how he gets the sheer views that he does. Pushing the right buttons, irritating people. Some people really enjoy that kind of stuff. I don't, but I see how he does it and where he comes from. Yeah, he did a video on a subject of most overrated cartridge, caliber, whatever, talking about handguns. And he was talking primarily of auto cartridges. His conclusion was that the most overrated cartridge was 10 millimeter. Well, I am inclined to agree with that, though 10 millimeter is a fine auto cartridge. 10 millimeter is an effective outdoor auto cartridge. 10 millimeter has been greatly oversold as some, super cartridge, close to in power, 41 Magnum, 44 Magnum, whatever, which is ridiculous. His conclusion, of course, had to include some irritants, and his irritant was to make fun of the 45 ACP and calling it the 45 AARP, which is crazy for the people who think that, for the 9mm people who think that the 45 ACP is an antiquated cartridge. I've touched on this before. The 9mm is older than the 45 ACP. We could have, a long discussion about an argument about what means more, bullet weight, diameter, paper energy figures and all that crap. And there's just people who are never going to get there. People who have sacred cows and subscribe to religions that I don't happen to worship or subscribe to. Energy transfer and, paper energy and all of that's part of it. But anyway. His conclusion that 10 millimeter was greatly oversold is correct because, and I can think of this old boy on. I don't really want to promote his channel, but I've mentioned him before. His channel on YouTube that he does, probably, I don't know, in a 7-day period, he might turn out 25 videos about what's the best all-time, bear cartridge. And it seems to me that it's always 10 millimeter and it's always in a platform that's most likely to explode in your hand. And once again, I mentioned it, I don't really take advice on things that matter like that from someone who the other half of his channel is talking about interdimensional superpower, clairvoyant, Bigfoot, aliens, whatever, as though they're real things. It's just nuts, and I'm pretty sure the old boy's been on drugs. But anyway, my point is people like him have really pushed 10 millimeter to be this all capable. It's the most popular. It's now in Alaska, it's the cartridge to have. Well, I guarantee it. After you've got on there and you have preached it far and wide that 10 millimeter is the best thing. Of course, 9 millimeter is the best thing coming because it's stock bearer too. But then again, like I mentioned before. So is 380 ACP and even 22 long rifle, and those are even more easier to control and easier to carry more ammo and greater magazine capacity in some cases. So I guess that's the next step in the evolution of the best bear cartridge. If lighter and softer shooting yet has killed a bear is the criteria for the best bear cartridge, we just go from 10 millimeter to 9 millimeter to 380 to 22 long rifle. Makes sense to somebody, I'm sure. But, and I'll take, one more on the YankeeMarshals thing. He mentioned that he's not a 9 millimeter fan. Usually a lot of the people who are bashing the 45 ACP are, the 9 millimeter crowd. It's the way it seems to me anyway. And I would say that I would put 9 millimeter, the 10 millimeter I think is overrated in the outdoors crowd. From the outdoors crowd, and I think 9 millimeter from the self-defense crowd is the most greatly overrated cartridge. I think that both of them, although the 10 millimeter is a great improvement over 9 millimeter, I think both of them are underpowered. Just my opinion. YankeeMarshal's right on really liking the 357 Magnum, and of course, but he goes the other end of the spectrum and thinks that if I'm going to go to Alaska, I'm going to in the big bear country, I'm going to have a 454 Casull or a 460 Smith & Wesson. Well, that, while the power would be nice, 460 and 500 Smith & Wesson, the size of the guns that they come in, to me, is just getting borderline impractical. Not saying they're not totable, they're not carryable, but I'm sure if, look, I'm out of shape. I'm not going to be running up and down mountainsides, in the Great White North or whatever, doing, trekking a whole lot of miles with any weight of gun right now. But, if I were going to do it, it's not going to be with something the size of a 500 Smith & Wesson or a 460 Smith & Wesson. It's going to be something on a shorter frame, even if it's 5-shotgun, 480 Ruger, heavy 45 Colt, and just take the time to learn to shoot the gun. You don't have to have the softest shooting gun. Once again, like I said, these auto calibers, banking on perfect function to, under the most stressful situation that you can imagine, to take advantage of the extended capacity of a magazine that's in the grip, 15 plus 1. Well, that's all fine and good as long as you have time to use it and it functions perfectly to get to whatever magic round count that you need to take care of a problem. My way of looking at it, and I think there's a difference in the auto. I know this is a rambling, wide-ranging kind of a diatribe here, but stay with me. I think that the biggest divergence, the biggest difference between people who think that 9mm is all anybody will ever need and it's the perfect thing and it's all it's ever called for self-defense, and the people who think that 10mm is the best, bear cartridge, bear stopper of all time, and that's all anybody will ever need, and the people who say, what are y'all talking about, 44 Magnum, heavy 45 Colt? And yes, in a short frame, appropriate frame, single action 454 Casull, which I'm out of and don't really care about anymore, 480 Ruger, now you're talking 500 JRH, 500 line ball, 475 line ball. All of those things, to me, I guess the difference in the people and what they think are adequate, what they think is too much, and is depending on what they're used to. If all you're used to shooting is relatively soft shooting semi-automatic firearms, and somebody hands you, or you spend 85-95% of your time shooting a 9mm or a 10mm or 45 ACP for that matter, and someone asks you, here, take this 44 Magnum in a Super Blackhawk frame, or take this, heavy 45 Colt in this Blackhawk, shoot this 310, 315 grain plus bullet at 1,200, 1,300 foot per second. Now, shoot it accurately, repeatedly. And aimed fire, those, if you practice with it, if you're used to it, and aimed fire, those heavy, hard-hitting rounds that I'm talking about in a revolver out of a single action are manageable. And for someone who's taken the time to get used to them and are comfortable with them and proficient with them, they're probably better armed, I would say, than someone who you give Johnny B. Greenhorn this 10mm and turn him loose. I hope it don't explode in him for the unsupported, less than fully supported chamber. Hope it functions perfect, and remember, just keep putting rounds on target. Why? Because you're probably going to need a lot more than one or two. But now for me, and this is something I've got into an argument with an old man, a Vietnam vet, who I think should know better, and a gunsmith, is that his mindset was, well, you can, I wouldn't tote a revolver because, I tote this 15 plus 1 9mm, and after your sixth shot, while you're over there reloading, I'll just come over and shoot you in the head. The man thinks he's got it figured out and how stuff like that goes. And I guess if you're a revolver person who lives with his semi-automatic higher capacity mindset, then yes, you're at a significant disadvantage. But I also think that if you're an auto caliber person or auto pistol person who has the mindset where you're used to counting on, or you're used to imagining counting on this extreme capacity or the much higher capacity to solve all your problems, then you're probably not dealing with the first few shots like you should in your mind. At least that's the way it works out to me. My response to him when he told me that, well, after you shoot your sixth shot, I'll count your six and I'll go over and shoot you in the head. And I told him, I said, you are banking a lot on the first shot, not counting. And he just looked at me for a minute like it didn't really sink in. I said, you better be studying on where the first round's going, not where the 15th's going. But that's the way I kind of feel about auto versus revolver. There's a different mindset. If I have time for one shot, and I have taken the time to get used to that gun, and I can get up, put it into action, if I have time for one shot, I would much rather it be a 300 plus grain hard cast bullet that can really do some damage, can really get some penetration, tear a big hole in a threat, than for it to be, if I have time for one. Would you rather have time to shoot, 2 or 3 9mm, or time to shoot 144 Magnum, one heavy 45 Colt, one 454 Casull, which, some 45 Colts are getting up there as far as terminal effectiveness. They're getting up in there, closer to what 454 Casull can do. Now, I'm not saying that the energy is the same, but the penetration capabilities, the potential is comparable. So I know this has been a long, kind of a rambling video, and it sure did kind of go places that I didn't intend for it to go. But like I said, I see people make claims. I see people make arguments, and I get motivated to chime in here and say, hey, look, I'm not the biggest YankeeMarshal fan. Matter of fact, he probably needs pop betwixt his running lights, have his eyes dotted. But, he's right about a few things, he's wrong about a few things. There's my take. As far as the big-eared people taking their Sasquatch 10mm to Alaska and declaring them, good enough to take down a Bigfoot flown UFO, y'all, if you're taking caliber cartridge advice from that feller, you have a whole new set of problems. And you may get irritated listening to me talk about it, but if you're taking advice from him, you got some serious issues. Anyhow, talk to y'all later.